When communicating with others, instructions or information regarding health and safety may be incorporated into the communication. That's why it's vital that you say things right and say them clearly. To get a better understanding on how safety relies upon effective communications, try and listen to the professionals. And here we mean effective communicators such as air traffic controllers. Their communications must be 100% correct all the time in order to achieve 100% passenger safety in the air. An industry can change and improve its communications. An example of this is the United Kingdom, and in particular, railway signalling. A long time ago, railway signalling was done locally, often by people known to others working on the track. Communication was very informal and often not recorded. How the UK rail industry has changed is that all communications now with signallers is recorded. And this means the UK rail industry has had to professionalise in its communications with each other, because these communications are safety critical. If you want to say it right, do not be embarrassed to ask people to read back your message. Reading back a message ensures that you have given the message correctly and the person receiving the message has understood it. Help with this can be using the phonetic alphabet. And on the screen you can see the standard United Kingdom version of the phonetic alphabet. Please note that different countries and different industries may have different phonetic alphabets. But use it correctly and don't forget to read numbers individually. So for example, the year 2019 in the phonetic alphabet will be the year 2019. Now in some industries, and we look again at the United Kingdom rail industry, you have to learn the phonetic alphabet. If you don't have to learn it, it is always useful to have a copy of the phonetic alphabet on your desk as a reference to make sure you are using it correctly. When you are verbally communicating, you may come across people who have a different accent, such as yourself. I have a rather strong Northern English accent, but when dealing with people not from my region, again I have to make myself understood and I have to make myself clear. However, if you do have an accent, don't try to hide it or mask it. Just attempt to make yourself clear and understood when speaking. We're going to talk briefly about received pronunciation. And this is the standard form of British English pronunciation, and it's based on educated speech from the south of England, and it's widely accepted as the default way of speaking in England. A good example of a person who uses received pronunciation is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And we've got to agree she speaks very clearly and professionally, probably because she's had lots of years practicing her communication skills. But across the UK, we've got a wonderful rich array of different accents. We mustn't stereotype anybody on behalf of their accent, but if you do have a strong regional accent, again, please make people understand you, so please speak clearly. And on a global basis, we have even more regional and international accents. We may deal with people who don't have English as their first language, or yourself, English may not be your first language. This doesn't matter as long as you make yourself understood and communicate clearly. To be an effective verbal communicator, you must have the right state of mind. And this means speaking with certainty, clarity, and with conviction. We must also take into account the speed of our vocal delivery. A great example of this is the American newscaster Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite trained himself to speak at a rate of 124 words per minute in his newscasts, and this is so viewers could clearly understand him. An average American speaks at about 165 words per minute, and fast, difficult to understand speakers speak close to 200 words per minute. To become a more effective verbal communicator, you must practice. And to do so, slow down with your delivery, keep your head up and look at your audience, and pause occasionally during your talking. However, there may be occasions where you don't have to say anything, so don't speak unless you have anything useful to say. A good example of this was the late British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's husband, Dennis. Dennis's job was to support his wife, whilst not being seen to have an opinion on anything. And a quote from Dennis says, "It's better to keep your mouth shut and be called a fool than open it and remove all doubt." And in your vocal delivery, yes can sometimes mean more. When Apollo 11 on the 29th of July 1969 landed on the moon, on American television, Walter Cronkite did not howl, or clap, or cheer. He calmly took his glasses off, rubbed his hands together, and looked at his colleague. And that footage, his actions, say far more than 1,000 words would. And in an entertainment setting, less can mean more. I am a soccer fan, and my favourite TV commentator was Brian Moore. And Brian didn't really say much when commentating, only the basics. He let the football on the screen do the talking. And this is contrasted to a current day commentator, Martin Tyler, who via himself and a co-commentator must describe and talk every minute of every match. I prefer less, and I preferred Brian Moore. But when speaking, speak in a volume that can be heard. You can speak in a strong voice as opposed to a loud voice, but speak clearly. And think about variety of pace, volume, pitch, or emphasis. However, we are not on the stage in business, so please avoid being dramatic, as others may not like it. And also, don't forget to warm up your voice. The greatest singers do, because their voice is an instrument. Your voice is an instrument that needs warming up. So if you're going to make a talk or a speech, please don't forget to warm your voice up before. At certain times, you will need to say the right thing to the right people. And this includes meeting very important persons. In 2018, I was very lucky to meet Her Majesty the Queen as part of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors 150th anniversary. And on the screen, you can see a picture of the back of my head as I spoke to Her Majesty. On the day that I met her, I wasn't actually expecting to speak to her. I was expected to be stood at the back of the crowd looking on. However, I was introduced to the Queen and we had a short conversation. However, before this, the Lord Lieutenant of London briefed us on what to say to her. We were told if the Queen wanted to speak to you, she would. If she didn't, she wouldn't. She would hold her hand out for you to shake and not the other way around. And when first speaking to Her Majesty, you had to address her as Your Majesty. And following this, address her as Ma'am. We were lucky enough on the day to be briefed on what to say to her, but please be wary if you are meeting important people or senior people, the titles and the tone in which you address them.